Hey everybody, so I was recently talked into doing a tutorial on how I do my Republic color schemes for Armada. This was a 3D printed ship from the shipbuilder on Etsy. Absolutely gorgeous print that I finished up the other day, luckily in one sitting. But it seemed to be pretty popular. I was blessed with a lot of very positive comments. Pretty proud of this one, and everybody else seemed to like it. So I figure I'll try to explain my process as I go ahead and paint this Acclamator from the same seller. This is a base that my buddy 3D printed me that I use as a paint stand. But hopefully this video will help everybody figure out a good way to get the stock color scheme on their 3D printed Armada stuff for the Republic, because this color scheme isn't very much talked about at all. So hopefully this will help. This is my first time doing one of these type of tutorials, so gonna be some growing pains, so please bear with me. So just to start out, I'm gonna start with the with getting our primer done using this Vallejo gray air primer. Give it a little test, and we're flowing well. So you want a pretty good coat over the whole model. If there's some like bleed through of the underlying resin, just remember this doesn't have to go on super thick, because all the primer does is help the base coats stick. All right, so to start out, we're gonna prime this thing. I actually primed the bottom of the ship prior to me deciding to do this video, which is fine. I still gotta prime the top part, so this works out good. So to start, we're using Vallejo air primer. Anytime I'm gonna use any paint, I always try to give it a good shake. And then pour it in our pot here. And it should be plenty. Give it a little test. All good, even flat coverage. That looks good to me. All right. So you just want to coat the whole model. And like I said, I'm just having to do the top to finish this off. It's kind of tough when a print's got a gray color to it, but it's okay. All the primer needs to do is help the base coats stick. So I always just do, I know I'm doing a constant spray, but I'm doing just really quick passes over some different directions. You never want to concentrate in one area because you'll get pooling. I know when I did my vinegar the other day, I had some pretty heavy pooling in one spot, so I had to strip part of it down and respray it, which wasn't too big a deal, more so just irritating. But trial and error is part of it. I'm still a very, very beginner painter when it comes to any of this stuff. So I learn something every time I paint, and I'm probably gonna learn something while I'm shooting this video. But that's cool, we can all learn together. All right, so now we're gonna get into working on the base coats. So the creamish color is going to be, let me get this to focus better, Brainmatter Beige from the Army Painter. And we are using the airbrush. So what I like to do is any non-specific airbrush or non-airbrush specific paint, I will water down with airbrush thinner from Vallejo. Let me scoop this guy out of the way. And I do 50-50. So I pour my thinner first. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Close enough. I do about 15 drops of thinner. And then I'll do the same with my base color. You always want to do your thinner first because it needs to kind of seep down, and you can get it really well mixed. I lost count, that should be good. So to mix, so as you see, this is still kind of separated, but what I do is I take a trash, and I'm talking trash brush, and just mix it up really, really well. Try to turn it sideways, get it up into the pot, so I mix it up well. But yeah, you want to use a really beat up brush. Just get like a really cheap pack of synthetic brushes from like the dollar store or something. You're not trying to use your like Kolinsky Sable brushes that we all probably overpaid for. Like, this is what the cheap ones are for. They all have a place. As you see, that thing is sufficiently destroyed, which is fine. This is a job it takes care of. All right. So we got a nice runny mix of paint. Give it a test spray. Spraying pretty well. And go and get started on the ship. I did clean my airbrush before I started because it was kind of clogged. That's part of it. You can probably see maybe a little bit of a gradient difference from the right to the left. Sorta. If you're wondering about this table, this is a project table that I got from my wife when she was still making custom tumblers and stuff. And it sits in the garage, so if this thing gets paint on it, neither one of us are going to care. Go and get the bottom. A lot of folks like don't even paint the bottom of ships, but I don't know, if you're going through all the effort, make both sides look good. You pay a bunch of money for these sellers that take a lot of time to make these ships. We owe it at least just to respect them to like paint them to the best of our ability. So I had some extra paint, so I'm just going to go over. And this will kind of build up wherever I may have missed. You notice I'm not holding it in one spot for very long. I'm just passing over real fast. Letting it build up over time to get a good amount of coverage. So now what I'm going to work on is the center stripe. That's going to be the Scarlett Red from Vallejo. So what I do for this, honestly, because I like to use the airbrush to get a nice flat amount of paint, is I'm going to take painter's tape off camera and just follow this ridge on both sides and then mask off the rest. That way I can hit this with about 2 coats of Scarlet Red, and it's going to give it that nice popping red detail that we see with the Republic ships. So I'm going to go off camera and do that now. Alright, so got this masked off with some painter's tape. Really just want to take your time doing it. If any paint bleeds through though, we have the base colors, so we can always just do a little bit of paint correction by brush. So I've already mixed my 50-50 of thinner and Scarlet Red. Give it a test spray. This will usually take about 2 coats. So I'll let that dry a few minutes. Off camera, I'll come back and just hit it again. Same exact principle though. All right, y'all, so I have done about probably 3 coats of paint because the red was spraying kind of thin, but it's no big deal. If you notice with the airbrush, it sprays on incredibly flat. So let's go ahead and peel this off and give our reveal. See how good of a tape job we did. We got a little bit of bleed through I can already see, but that's not a problem because we can cover that with our base colors. Yep. So like I was saying, little bit of bleed through, not a huge deal. That is going to get covered up in just a second. So let me go construct me a wet palette and get to work. All right, so out of paper towels. Nope, I lied, I just found some. Every video needs some bloopers, no big deal. So I'm gonna take one paper towel, get it wet with my cup of water, off camera. I place it here. This is actually wax paper. Normally I would use parchment, but we are out of parchment paper. But that's cool, no big deal. We're gonna make some stuff happen anyway. Brush I'm using is a golden maple Kolinsky brush that I picked off of Amazon a while back. That's pretty good. It's pretty decent sized detail brush. I really need to get like an extreme one from Army Painter. I just haven't made the plunge to pick one up yet. Pull me a little bit of paint. If you're ever wondering how to get a good consistency, a trick I found is to thin your paint with some water and then just paint a stripe on your skin. And as long as you can see the ridges of your skin, your paint's thinned down well enough. If you can see the color of your skin, it's too thin, and then if it's globbing like this spot right here, it's not thin enough. So what I'm gonna do, so I'm just gonna come into the ship right here and just paint over these splotches and try to clean this up a little bit. It's probably gonna take a few coats because when you're putting a light color, such as this off-white, I guess you would call it, onto a red, it's gonna take you a few coats to cover it up super well. I'm not so much concerned with the spots with the panel lines because those will be filled later. And they'll be filled with black, which will cover up any imperfections pretty well. This will probably take 2 coats, maybe 3, but we'll see. I'm always really bad about freaking out when I mess something up, but I think it's a common thing with most artists where we notice the imperfections that we've laid, but the audience is like, man, that looks really good. And it's like, really? But I think we all go through the same thing, honestly. Cool part is if you have imperfections that are like gray or black, just say it's carbon scoring from battle and call it a day. It's already cleaning up pretty good. I bet when we do the second pass, it's gonna look even better. Super awkward to do this with a camera in front of me, but whatever. I said I would do this video, so here we are. It's gonna be a tough part right here. I do have the garage door open. Anytime you're airbrushing, you really wanna wear either respiratory protection or be in a very well ventilated area. Of course, I'm bad about taking my own advice. And if I get any of the white on the red spots, that's not a big deal. So you can always go back with the red and correct it, I guess, in reverse. So just on a quick glance, it is looking better. Just take some time. Remember, there's no rush. It's very easy to get impatient doing this. So while that coat dries, before I go back to do it a second time, I'm going to show y'all how we do these engines. So we're going to go toward the, I'm going to go with the Citadel Basilicanum Grey. If you guys are ever painting squadrons, contrast paints are like a cheat code. God's honest truth. It is incredible how much easier it makes them. Because this acts almost like Nuln Oil, where it will drop into the recesses and be lighter on the flat surfaces. So what I'm going to do is just do the engines in the Basilicanum Grey. So here, 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 and there. So what I'll do is I'll kind of load it heavy on my brush and then just spread it around. I really need to learn how to do some magic with the airbrush so I can make it look like it's got some heat applied toward the, I guess toward the fins is what you call it, at the end of the engine. But I am not a wizard with an airbrush like a lot of other more professional painters are on YouTube, but that's okay. It needs to be good enough for tabletop. Because remember, we're seeing this from a standing position at the table. So as long as it's passing, I'm good with it. And just like with the red, if I get a little bit of this on the white spots that I don't want it, there's no problem in going back with the base color and just correcting it. Like I said before, this and my Venator, my latest one that I painted that I showed in the beginning of the video, were from the shipbuilder on Etsy. And what I really liked on the Venator is the engines actually came separate and you had to assemble them, which made painting it super convenient because all of this is going to remain white. So I was able to do it separately on the Venator and not get any gray on the engines. I'm sorry, on the body panels, which made painting a breeze. I mean, it legitimately saved a ton of time having to go back and forth with paint correcting. I was incredibly impressed with that model. I will 100% be linking it in the description and purchasing more because I was just blown away at the quality of that ship. Got a few more spots I gotta hit here. Remember, just take your time. So you see the Basilicanum does a pretty good job of dropping into the recesses. When it comes to engines, I'm not super worried about them looking perfect because these engines are responsible for jumping hyperspace, and I would imagine that generates a lot of heat. So you're going to get some discoloration. Or whatever I try to headcanon to just finding corrections for myself. As long as the kids are happy while we're playing the game and all the players are having a good time, that's truly what matters in the end. And that, you know, I win, but whatever. My son and myself are 50-50 on the win-loss ratio. So I need to get some good rolls and show him his boss. I guess I have the trump card and I could just ground him, but I think that's seen as a cheating. And my wife would be like, what are you doing? All jokes, of course. I say those two look pretty good, so let me get these small ones now. If anybody has any recommendations on some brushes to get even smaller, hit me up in the comments. I'm gonna do my best to read every comment. I really don't see this video getting a whole lot of views. I'm not like super popular or anything, but any suggestions are very, very appreciated. Let me learn how to speak English. Oh, got a little bit of splatter there. That's okay. I say that file's under good enough. And clean my brush off. And now we're gonna go back to our paint correcting with the beige. Paint didn't dry too much, so that's good. Add a little droplet of water. Yeah, that second coat's gonna be the trick right there, y'all. But it may take a third. One thing I found is try to do everything in lines. Don't alter the direction you're moving your fingers. Alter the ship to conform to the way you're pulling the brush. If you try to go at some crazy angles you're not used to or that don't feel natural, you're gonna mess up 100% of the time. And I'm no Duncan Rhodes, I promise. Although I've watched a lot of his videos because that guy is a freaking wizard when it comes to painting. A little bit thicker paint there. Oh, almost dropped the brush. It's okay. I'll probably come in with the third coat. So while that one dries, let's do some more detail. So I'm going to take our blue, which is going to be wherever I put it. Let's see, there it is. It's going to be the Vallejo Light Blue Green. And I like to use this for both the engine glow as well as the windows. For engine glow, just do whatever you want. If you want to do yellow, that looks good. You want to do red, that also looks good. You want to do blue? Guess what? That also looks good. That's the beauty of mini painting. Just do what you want. Whatever you think looks good, go for it. If you want hot pink ships, I respect it. I've actually seen I saw a fleet, I think on Reddit, that were all hot pink, and I'm not gonna lie, those things look freaking sick. Yeah, that's gonna be tiny. So I'm just gonna poke it into these windows right there. And one thing you can do is just wet your thumb and wipe off any spots that you painted a little sloppy, I guess you could call it. Let's try it. Oh yeah, that worked pretty good. It actually worked extremely well, so we did learn something. So yeah, it looks pretty solid. Small details like that really just bring a ship to life, in my opinion. Now I'm going to do the engine glow. And for this, I just kind of paint it all up in there. Some guys do with the airbrush. I really need to practice doing that because I would like to get some glow effects, like kind of, I guess, on the body of the ship, but I just haven't been brave enough to try it. That'll work. Alright, so I added some Basilican Gray. I'm going to have to come back and add some blue there, but I'm going to let the stuff dry a little bit. I'm going to come in with a third coat for the white paint correction. And I believe this third coat's going to be the last one I'm going to do. Like I said, if it's in the edges, don't sweat it, because that's what the panel liner is going to hide, is any imperfections there. Oh, a little bit of red right there. Didn't notice that earlier. Problem solved. All right, so one thing that I've learned, the hardest thing to paint anywhere is a straight line. So if we look at this Acclamator, this is an official one from FFG. And I just realized my engines are a different color, but who cares? So the Republic ships typically have some type of stripe pattern that's relatively straight. I actually just realized this one's kind of curved, but whatever. So we want to try to replicate this. So when you're trying to make lines, try to find landmarks. I watched Gold Squadron podcast video on when they custom painted Plo Koon's Delta 7, which is the first ship I ever custom did myself. Zoom out a little bit. And the trick was find some landmarks and just draw a straight line. And then basically flush it out until you get about the desired size you're looking for. So on mine, my landmark's going to be between this body line and this body line. They don't have to match exactly. That's kind of the beauty of, like I said, painting your own stuff. Off camera, I poured a little bit of paint over here. So we're going to mix it in with some water to thin it down. You want a very fine point So what I do is I usually just kind of pull against the wax paper and rotate. I'm going to use this ship as a reference. So I'm going to do me a little mark right here. And I'm just going to go body line by body line to freehand this. They are not going to be perfect, but that's cool. You know, I just kind of pull. Very slowly. This is one of those situations where you certainly want to move the object to match the direction that you're painting. Once you have your outer lines, you just fill in the middle. Let's get a little bit more paint. Nice sharp tip. Fill it in. You can probably mask this off with tape, but I'm just going to freehand it. I'll probably come back and do another coat just to darken that paint in. So that ship down there has 5 stripes, so I'm just going to keep doing stripes, working my way out. What I'm doing here is pre-scoring where my stripes are going to fall. Just realized I was holding my breath for like that entire process. Breathing is important. I do suggest it. I'll say these are, oddly enough, coming out better than I thought. But this also falls into the, it's probably not going to be perfect, but just get it close. Not perfect. The other one's a little bit darker and thicker, but you know what? That's fine. I ain't sweating it too bad. I think it'll still look decent when I'm done. So I'm gonna go off camera and do the other side. All right, so we have freehanded the stripes. Obviously not gonna be as clean as FFG's, but you know what? I'm happy with it. Hopefully you guys are too. Because that's probably as good as it's gonna get for just freehanding. So you know what? I'm just gonna live with it. So now we need to get all these panel lines done, but first, let me zoom out. What we need to do is gloss varnish this entire model. The reason we do gloss is because it's going to give us a sealant. And when we apply an enamel wash, the enamel is already pretty thin. And what it does is it uses capillary action to fill in all the recesses pretty efficiently. It's very satisfying to do. So first thing we're gonna do is get this gloss varnish going. So I'm gonna go off camera, shake this thing up, and we're gonna apply it to the model. All right, let me get my camera to stop shaking. There we go. All right. So now we're gonna gloss varnish. Got my Vallejo gloss. Varnishes come out extremely thick. So you have to thin these down. So I'm gonna do my usual 10 to 15 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, sure. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. One thing before you use any varnish ever is you need to shake the crap out of these things. What I usually do is I just wrap it in my hand, because your hand is naturally kind of warm, and just shake the snot out of it for about 4 minutes or so. So we got it poured in here. Sorry, poured in here. I'm gonna grab my garbage brush and mix it really well. You'll notice inside the pot, this is kind of like a milky color, but I promise you it goes on nice and clear. I don't know what it is that changes its color, but you know what, whatever. I never claimed to be a magician, so that's fine. So to tell if this is thin enough, what I like to do is just kind of run it up the pot, and you should see it kind of, let's see if I can get closer to the camera. You should see it kind of falling back into the pot. This is incredibly hard to do, but you get the point. Put some on the brush, and as long as it's dropping in freely, it's thin enough. All right. And get a test spray. Yep, we're good. So I kind of angle the ship. I'm in the garage with the garage door open, so I angle the ship to where the light's kind of coming in on it, and that lets me see if I'm getting like a, I guess, kind of a wet look to it, and that tells me I've got some gloss on there. You want a thick gloss coat. But like I said earlier, don't like just, oh, actually we're out of varnish. For it to be so thick, it goes out real quick. So let me go mix some more up. I usually give the whole model like a overcoat or two. And then since I'm impatient, I will go set it in front of a space heater and dry it. Obviously, when you're using a space heater, make sure it's not on any kind of carpet and it's in a safe place. Remember, when it comes to using anything with heat, fire safety comes first. I'm a firefighter full-time, have been for going on 10 years now. Don't want anybody following my guide to burn their house down. That'd be very tragic. Make sure you hit every side of this thing, every possible angle you can find. I'm gonna wager to say once this is done, it's gonna be ready. This should be the last coat of gloss that I'll need to apply. Now I'm gonna go off camera, put this in front of a heater, and I will come back when she is dry and ready for oil. All right, so this is really what spawned this tutorial, was how I do my panel lining. There's another YouTuber, can't remember the video, I can link it in the comments, who recommended this stuff. But pretty much any oil wash will work. I'm sorry, enamel. You can get enamel paints and thin them down. But this works better than anything I've tried pretty much ever for panel lining. So shake it up really good because it does settle into itself, and this stuff smells god awful. So well ventilated area is highly recommended. So if you remember earlier, I mentioned we gloss varnish. Well, this is why. I get some oil on my brush, and I'll find me a junction point between a bunch of panels. So I'm gonna go here. And if you notice, the oil seeps itself into the recesses. Let me get a thicker amount. You don't really need to guide it. As long as you get it into the recess, the oil will follow the lines by itself. And because we gloss varnished, it kind of makes the model, I guess, slippery, for lack of a better term. And the capillary action of the oil itself does the job. So this part is kind of tedious, but I promise you the results are 1000% worth it. And don't worry about those blotches on the panels. I'm going to show you how we clean that up here in just a little bit. So I just go through in different spots and lay it in there. So if you notice, I put it on there and it just seeped all the way to here and here. And like I said, you don't have to be super neat with it because the cleanup process is going to make this incredibly simple. One thing about the oil wash though is you're going to want to, every couple minutes, like 5 minutes, just shut the bottle and shake it up real good again, because I guess it kind of settles. So the way you'll know that is you'll go to use it and it doesn't really flow into the recess as well. I don't know what it is about the recipe that it does that, but easily remedied, so not a big deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the video here and line the rest of this, and I'll come back and show you how we clean it up. I actually decided to add this in. So the bottom is done. You notice it's very splotchy. May have missed a few spots. Let me fix that right quick. Very splotchy, but that will be corrected. Don't you worry. So I'm making my way to the top side. See if I can get a good example of how well this stuff works. So I'm just gonna hold the brush tip in one place. If you notice, it just kind of seeps into all those crevices. So all you're doing is looking for junction points. And let the paint do the work. If you notice, this stuff just flows beautifully into all the cracks. Work this way right through there. Literally just hold the brush and it will do everything for you. Sometimes you may need to guide it, but it's very rare. So you notice, this is kind of where the paint was a little thick from where I was doing some corrections, but it flows right between those imperfect spots. Kind of hides any mistakes that we may have made. Actually, I make mistakes all the time, so it's 100% fixing my mess ups, which is appreciated. And by the time I get this top side done, the bottom will be ready for cleanup, which is really the most important part, because you'll think, man, that is splotchy, that looks like garbage, but dude, trust me, it's gonna look fabulous. One point I'd like to make with the stripes I did earlier, those are totally optional. You don't have to do it. I try to like to go the extra mile with my stuff. Sometimes it ends up looking like garbage and I just don't do it, but figured for this video tutorial, why not go the extra mile? I know some folks are looking forward to this, so I'd like to at least try to deliver well, I guess. So where you really see this stuff shine is, let me give it a shake, in these spots like on the superstructure, where there's a ton of detail. See if I can get this right on the camera. I mean, it just does all the work, truly. The wash does a great job of just finding edges. If you don't have super good overhead light, you may need to either carry your model outside or in front of a bright light just to see if you miss any spots. If you do miss some spots, it's okay, because if you look at FFG models, guess what? They did too. I know I've got some ships, I probably ought to do some wash correction on, but it's okay. I like to try to keep my stock ships stock. I know some folks like to customize them, more power to you. Seen plenty of paint jobs on stock models that look fantastic. I, however, am not that brave. Especially for what ships go for in the secondary market, I try to keep them looking sharp. Not that I'd ever sell them. I'm more of a hoarder myself, but especially since, believe it or not, I actually got into this game after it was announced that it was no longer being made. But me and my sons were like, let's do this. And I'm married to a Star Wars fan as well, who has no quarrels with my hobbies, so I'm a very blessed man, to put it quite simply. And try to hit these little raised areas as well. If you guys have any questions and I don't see them in the YouTube comment, please feel free to reach me on Discord. I'm in the Armada Legends Discord, Crabbox Discord, Armada Hub. I'm in pretty much all of them. Just as Chiles. That's Chiles. You got any questions, please feel free to reach out. My notifications are off on pretty much every Discord because I'm in like a billion of them. However, if you tag me, I will see it. It's pretty much the only things I have on, because I have like 10,000 hobbies, and thus I'm in like a million Discords. All right, now we're gonna get to the cleanup process on the bottom. Let me clean this brush and go off camera for just a second. Now for the cleanup process, I actually got this trick from Maverick Paints, who does a lot of Warhammer stuff. Got some makeup wedge sponge things. This is like a 20 pack from Walmart for like less than $2. I mean, these things are, this whole pack should last me an incredibly long time. So I take my enamel thinner and a sponge and just get my sponge wet with thinner. So you want your models to dry with all this oil wash on it. And all you're gonna do is wet the sponge. Don't press on it, just wipe it across the model. Let the weight of the sponge do the work. And as you see, it just cleans all the over stuff incredibly well. All the thinner does is kind of reactivate the oil and then seep off the stuff on the top. It can pull it out of the crevices, which is fine because we can always just put some more on, just let this stuff dry. And reapply, wipe away. And just keep doing it till you get it to a point where you're satisfied with it. You might miss a few spots, it's okay. I like to think these ships leak oil sometimes. It's kind of like what they say about a diesel truck. If it's not leaking, it ain't got oil. As you see, that just cleans up the lines beautifully well. Some spots I may have got a little heavy in there and I may need to reapply, but this is the bottom side. I'm not super concerned because it just looks fabulous. So this is what I hit first after I was done with the bottom. Same thing right here. Try not to go parallel with the lines, try to go at an angle. So if the lines are going this way, wipe kind of at an angle across them like this. I try not to go this way because I feel like the sponge can kind of get in that crevice and pull that out. So if I go perpendicular to it or crossways from it, it prevents me from pulling the paint out. That could just be a myth, but it's worked for me for the most part, so I'm just going to stick to that plan. All right, so here's the top. You could honestly even just run it like this and call it done, but I'm going to grab a cleaner one. Bring it out a little bit. And I'll press forth with the same thing. So I just kind of come across. And you're left with very sharp panel lines inside all the crevices. Use the corner of the sponge to get kind of them hard to reach places. And there you have it. It's pretty easy, honestly. It's a very simple process. Just takes a little bit of time, but when you're done, I mean, it is really hard to beat those super crisp panel lines. So what I'll do is I'll let this dry. To clean my brush, I just dipped it in the enamel center directly. And then dipped it in water to kind of clean it up. I'm actually gonna put this back on its stand. And I'm gonna tackle the sides with some Nuln Oil. Nuln Oil, that is, try to say that 5 times fast. Not very easy. Oh, missed a little spot right there. And with the Nuln Oil, all I'm going to do is just hit the edge. just to bring out some of the detail. I usually lay it on, like I may just kind of get a big old glob, lay it on there and just guide it. Honestly, you can just get some of this oil and put it on your stock ships just to bring out some detailing. Yeah, a little bit thick there, but it's okay. Because I can just get it off my brush. Just soak that up and move it somewhere else. Washes are extremely forgiving, which is good. If you're going for a dirtier ship, like something that a pirate would have had, like Hondo, Agrax Earthshade is a more brown tinge wash that would do very well for those kind of gritty looking scoundrels, I guess you can call them. Pretty good. Let's clean up the edge of my thumb a little bit. All right. Now, when I posted the pictures of this vinegar that I did, I was asked, did I freehand these circles? And the answer was absolutely not. No. There is no way I was going to get it that clean. If you go to Etsy and look up a seller called Angry Space Triangles, they sell logo sheets. They have them for every faction you can think of. This is the Republic Fleet large 6mm to 18mm sheet. They have them for all sorts of stuff. I think these come from Legion. I could be wrong. I have no idea. So what I did was I looked at the Venator and Acclamator from FFG and realized that the circles were the same size. So I came here, found the right size one, which is going to be this one, so the second from the smallest. I'm going to cut this dude out. Which I think these circles add so much detail. Like these just really tie the paint job together. I cut these out. And all these are water slides. So I try to trim them as best I can. Because depending on the angle you look at it, you can see some of the white residue. It's very little if you do. So just trim them up as best you can. And some of the decal sheets they do, like they sell these like in a distress pattern. So you can actually make it look like your ship's been out there freaking slaying for a while. So what I do is just take this and put it in a little thing of water for roughly 20-30 seconds. So while that's doing that, I'm going to look at the FFG model next to my model. And I'm going to find a landmark of where I want these circles to be. So mine's not going to be exact, but I'm going to get them in this shape right here. Probably kind of toward the center on both sides. And the trick to doing these is this stuff right here, which is Microsol from Microscale Industries. So this is a setting solution, and as you can read, softens decals to conform to irregular surfaces. Essentially, the best way I can describe it is it will melt the decal into your model. So it'll fall into the recesses, it'll kind of conform around something. The only issue is you have to make sure you got that decal dead on the money where you want it before applying Microsol, because if I were to put the decal on, put Microsol, and then want to change where it is, it will warp the decal. So you have to be extremely exact of where you want it. So this has been sitting in water for about 20-ish seconds or so. So I'm just gonna drop it into this area. I'm gonna use these little tiny scissors and try to get it lined up as best I can. So kind of like what I was describing about doing landmarks, I'm gonna try to get the corner of this circle. No, actually, let's change that. I'm gonna get the corner of this ring lined up with that box, and then this corner, this ring is gonna line up against that line right there as best I can. That looks pretty good. So what you want to do is, once it's placed there, take a sponge and press it directly downwards. Put some pressure on it. And now, I take Microsol. This brush is only used for Microsol. That's all I ever use it for. Give it a good shake. Get on the brush and just brush it on there thick. It's not going to affect the paint at all. Then same thing, take your sponge and mash it directly downwards. And put a good bit of pressure on it, just don't move it laterally. Good pressure. And what it does is it kind of pushes the sticker into that recess. Or, I'm sorry, the decal. Lots of pressure. Most of these ships are hollow, so don't break your ship, but you really want to force it on down there. And now I'm gonna do the same thing with the other side. So I'm gonna take the rest of this one, cut it out, and do the exact same thing. So I'm gonna go off camera and knock that out right quick. All right, so we're at the part where we can go ahead and gloss varnish to polish this dude up. So went ahead and applied the second decal in post. I'm sorry, off camera. Centered up pretty well. I think it ties the model together pretty good, honestly. So just like the gloss varnish, we're now moving to a matte. And the matte varnish is gonna give us that nice flat finish that really makes a ship look good. So just like I did with the gloss, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, about 15 drops of thinner, and match that with the matte varnish. Grab my trash brush. And give it a good mix. Try to turn it sideways, draw it out of the bottom there. So this will give us the flat finish that we're looking for, but it'll also protect all the paint under it, including those decals. They're really pretty much a cheat code for getting the circles done. Got a good spray. Turn it sideways, see my work. Let it rip. This is the last time I burned through that real quick, so I'm gonna add some more. Off camera, I had a massive enamel oil spill. Not really sure how it happened, but we got that cleaned up. Luckily, the spirits cleaned this mess up really, really fast because it got everywhere. It was all over my hands, some on the shit, but that problem has been fixed. It's going to be glossy to start with, but once this dries, it's going to be all flat. I'll include some pictures at the end when this is done. But for those of you stuck around of this train wreck of a first video, thank you very much. I hope this kind of helped answer any questions or maybe give you all some inspiration or some tips for getting your ships painted. If you guys get some stuff done, hit me up on Discord. Please let me know how they turned out. I'd love to see people's work. Thanks. Have a good day.